So when it comes to, I think you said something about. Oh yeah. So um, there was there was a video on like Instagram a while back, and so you're talking about having people say my name and things like that. So um, yeah, it looks intimidating. When you break it down, it's really not that hard. It's not. I mean, there's certain names where I could see someone would be like, "Oh, this is intimidating." Like, if you can't, uh, like if you've never seen an N and a K next to each other, you'd be like, "Q." I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if you don't have that, the I don't know, just like the ability. I mean, there's certain words in like I don't know, like Chinese or things like that.
Right.
As you're developing, there's kind of like muscles and whatever in your throat or your tongue that allow you to make certain sounds. So not everyone can say okay, to say "kiru," right?
Right.
They can't always make that sound. So I can understand that, but to say "chukwunonso" is it looks intimidating, but I always challenge people to try to say it, because especially if they're in the diaspora, because it's like why not
Right.
try, and you might find out that it's really not that hard.
Mm-hmm.
The other part of that is there was this video going around a while back, and I think it was that one of the actresses from Orange Is the New Black.
Yep, I was going to mention that too. Yep.
Yeah, and her name is
Uzo.
Amaka.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I think she played Crazy Eyes, I think, or one of the characters on there. And I could be wrong about that. Let me know if
Right, you're right.
Section. Yeah. Okay. So, and you guys probably know the video. She said one day she asked her mom, "Can you call me Zoe?" I think it was like Zoe instead. And her mom was like, "Why?" And she said something like, "I don't know, just be easier." And what she said was so true. Her mom said, if they can learn to pronounce Michelangelo and Dostoevsky, they can learn to pronounce Uzamaka. And that, it just blew my mind, because I'm just like, those are complex names that are not necessarily American. They're not very common. Mm-hmm. So why is it an issue when it comes to African complex names?
Right.
If it's long or look intimidating. So I challenge people to be able to say all complex names, because we live in a melting pot of a country, and so nothing against any type of complex name or any culture. Just treat everyone fairly. And yeah, so I mean, I had a question about what you were saying about Gen Z. Do you see that they're not as I want to understand what you mean. You're saying that they're on social media and all those. You're seeing some on like social media, but is there something you're missing? Like where are you seeing it like missing?
Well, for me, and again, I would say it could just be the ones that I'm interacting with, because I know, for us, a lot of times our parents didn't really speak our languages to us. Some, like our parents, they were intentional about taking us to functions and stuff like that. But I think with the parents of Gen Z kids, young people, I don't really see that same level of, or at least maybe again, obviously I'm not a Gen Z, so I don't really know their lived experiences. But just from kind of the parents, I would say I don't see that same level of, speak. I mean, it's almost like the language just kind of gets diminished as each generation goes on. Yeah, and I know for many Igbo scholars and Igbo enthusiasts, a lot of them are really concerned. So I am happy that obviously there's so many more resources now online and books and everything where people can kind of learn the language. So yeah, but I'm I am happy to see them at least engaging, at least like on social media, like with like funny skits. Of course, it's more of making jokes of African parents, but
that's
within those jokes, there's still some level of you understand culture enough to make those kind of remarks.
Exactly. I think that's great. Humor is great. It's
right.
It's like trick people into learning something or whatever. Edutainment.
Right.
It's that's good. I mean the future is where we, as a society, we have to focus. But yeah, I mean, maybe it is social media. I have seen that.
Hmm.
But yeah, maybe the viewers, maybe your audience can put in the comment section below what's the best way to connect with the future. Is it,
Right. Just
TikTok and Snapchat and things like that? What's been your experiences, right?
yeah.
You guys can let us know what's a good way to reach them on those platforms like Gen Z and stuff. I think, like you said, since you're bringing this part up, I think, yeah, that might be important. To engage them, but like the language part, I know that there is a they start, I think it was in Oxford University, they started like the first Igbo class. I'm not sure if you heard about that.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, so I think that was great. That was amazing. And yeah, I mean, kind of like me, I mean, watching Nollywood movies,
Oh yeah.
those on there help. The comedy
Oh
ones,
yeah.
listening to music, like you said, listening to flavor. I
Hmm.
would encourage everyone to do that because that's an easy way to learn. If you're not the type of person who wants to take a class necessarily,
Right.
um,
Right.
learn that way. And that way,
Right.
you're not kind of like learning, but it's contextual. You're learning colloquialisms and stuff. You're seeing what's going
Exactly.
on, and you're able to relate it to your own life, and it becomes a little bit easier.
Right. And also, there's one thing that I have noticed, even with our own upbringings. A lot of times, African parents, not just Nigerian, I'm sure others too, but obviously we're coming from that cultural context. There's this weird fear or concern that if I teach my kids Igbo or whatever whatever the language is, they're going to have an accent and they're going to have issues in school, and that's a very unfortunate way of thinking. I've discussed with Igbo teachers on my podcast before, and we kind of say the same thing. That's a very unfortunate way of thinking because the funny thing is, the parents, they obviously have the language. Some of them, they don't have a very strong command either because maybe they grew up in Lagos. That's a
Yeah,
whole other conversation. Like, for
yeah,
some reason, those who grew up in Lagos, they don't really have a good command of the language. So, of course, it's worse when they don't have a strong command of the language and they come here and have kids and then they don't teach the kids the language because of whatever their reasons may be.
yeah.
So it's a really deep concern, and I always think about like the future because if we don't have a strong command of the language now, how can we pass it on? But you know,
That's very true. It's hard. I know. I always try to put myself in my parents' shoes
mm,
with Westernization and colonization, and it's just
right,
that a new paradigm, a new way of operating, and to now associate, I guess, everything that you're seeing, Western America, all that stuff, with affluence, and then you literally see everything around you begin to deteriorate. So you associate that with something that's bad. And like you said, we can kind of go into politics and all the other stuff. I don't know if we'll go into that, but there was a reason for that. But it's unfortunate, and I think our parents in their what do you call it, just in their desire to want the best for their kids, and
hmm
they might not have understood. Some of them might not have understood how important this is, and they might not have known that children can learn 5 different languages with
right,
the accent at a certain time, and
hmm
all they're focused on, because I've seen videos that you've some of your past videos, all their focus is in our success.
right,
It's like by any means necessary.
hmm
Like that's why they don't want anything to get into the way. They didn't struggle in Nigeria to come over here for something like an accent to be the one thing that's not spoken. See, you know what I mean? A certain language around you. I mean, my dad said he wasn't going to speak. He wasn't going to. That was actually his. I mean, very interesting way of putting it. I don't know if he thought about it this way, but he actually did not want, in the beginning, he did not want to speak English around me. He wanted me to learn English from others. So we only
nice,
spoke Igbo with me. And I don't know if he had that foresight, but I think it was more so him wanting to keep me in the culture.
mm,
And then me learning English, he just knew I would do that just naturally, like said.
right,
But I
right,
get what you're saying, like, because children will pick things up. If you speak English to them with an accent, they might, but then it's kind of weird because I see like I see parents of like other cultures, they'll be Chinese or Spanish or whatever,
Hmm.
they'll speak with an accent, the parents will, but the kid, if they're like watching a cartoon or
Exactly.
school, they will speak perfect English and they won't have an accent at all. But
Right.
I think I can
Right.
understand that fear if maybe our parents came here and they were discriminated against, and they were just like, oh, it's because you can tell because of my accent. I don't
Hmm.
want my kid to have an accent. And like they say, hindsight is 2020. We could all look back now and say like, wow, but they didn't know. I think a lot of them didn't know, and they did. I think they had their best, but they tried their best. But again, accountability needs to be there, and no one's perfect. But I think it's on us to, whether it's through, hopefully that's what I'm trying to do through Igbo Name of the Day, watching Nollywood movies, watching whatever. And uh, there's this page that followed me, and I think her name is like Akata Mutibo or something like that. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that's my friend.
Yeah. She was telling me about that, and I think she's African American, and she was telling
Yeah.
me, and it's really interesting that she learned it herself.
Right.
And for the viewers, Akata is not really a good thing to call somebody, but basically she's saying that she's learning Igbo, but it's really interesting and funny how she kind of like turned an insult into something
Right.
like, I'm going to connect to my culture. I'm not going to just be this this person who is lost. I refuse to.
Right.
So that was very admirable, and yeah, I think there's definitely a fear or a concern, I should say, of the language dying out, and we just have to do what we can to keep it alive, whether it's through just these funny skits that you're talking about, or about our parents, or something. At least amalgamated into English. If I'm even using that word correctly, let's get an Igbo word in the dictionary.
Yes.
By 2050, let's get one Igbo word in the dictionary. So because English is already a melting pot of different
Right.
languages, so I think we can do it.
So actually, no. So you actually inspired like 2 questions, and I want to see if I can spit them out before I forget.
Yeah.
So the first one is like, with this kind of mimicking of culture, like we can do that all day, make fun of our parents' accents or funny things they did growing up, and make as many skits as possible.
They have
But
no idea.
what if,
They have no clue.
but what about like our future kids? Like, are they going to be able to make fun of us? Because I feel like that's that cultural disconnect that I always think about and get concerned. That's the first question. The second question, I've seen so many like Igbo athletes. Maybe they're mixed. More than like most of them are mixed. Maybe they have a white parent or whatever the case may be, and naturally there's going to be a disconnect. One, growing up in the diaspora, to having coming from a multiracial or multicultural home. So it's so painful hearing them say their names, say them, for them to say their own names incorrectly. Like, it's just like, oh my gosh, if you can't say your own name right, then I don't know. Like, that's like the first step to, I don't know. So I don't know if you can kind of give some quick feedback about that before we go into your photography.
Sure. Good questions. So the first one, they're going to be able to make fun of us, and I would hope so. I mean, I love comedy. I mean, there's this one comedian named Josh Too Funny, and his stuff is like hilarious. He has a huge following, and I would hope so. I mean, I try to be lighthearted. I don't know if I would. I mean, like, I might say, some people say my accent comes out if I have one. I don't know. Maybe I do. When I'm angry or whatever, but I hope they'll be able to make fun of us. I hope they always say you wind up turning into your parents, so maybe there's quirks that we'll have. But that's a really interesting question that you had. Are they going to be able to make fun of us? That's my goal. That is my goal. If that is the mark of good Igbo parenting, is will your parents make fun? Will your children make fun of the things you put them through and your mindset? That is the goal. Thank you for giving me that. I don't have a good answer for that, but I'm going to make sure to embarrass my children on a daily basis. Drop them off from school. I'm going to yell so many things from the car door. To make sure that their friends look forward to me picking them up from school. Whenever I pick them up, I don't know if they're gonna have hologram cell phones at that time. All the is gonna come out. They'll be like, "Oh, watch this!" Like they're picking it now. Yo, watch. You know, everyone's gonna be, cool. But yeah, I hope they can make fun of us. Yeah, but like, because I think what you're saying is like, at least they were so into their culture that there was some residual there that we can make fun of. It's not like we're land effect.
Right.
We have to be strong enough in ours so that they pick up something. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to pick up anything at all.
Right. Right.
And there was another question about not being able to name correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's just more of like cultural preservation is something that I'm really like. It concerns me because I mean, at least the people who are back home, obviously they are in an environment that they can walk down the street and pretty much see or hear the language being spoken or seeing their culture, going to the village, their township or whatever. But for us, being that we're so many thousands or whatever miles removed, and then, for both you and I, we don't go home as often, and maybe don't connect with people back home. Of course, we may have our groups here, but obviously they're Americanized for the most part, versus those who are back home who are still very much, in the culture and can connect with the culture in a deeper way than we can, without even really trying to. For us, I feel like we have to be very intentional about it. So it's just a concern, like even with people saying their names incorrectly, or, of course, we've been guilty of it many times. Even allowing people to say our names incorrectly, we just kind of let them, just call me this. I mean, I don't typically do that. I don't do that now, especially not now. But in the past, like people would ask, "Oh, can I just call you Nikki? I'm just gonna call you this," and it's like no. But because like as you mentioned earlier, because you're in this environment and you want to fit in as much as possible, not try to create too much, like whatever. So you just kind of go on with it and not just let people call you whatever it is. So I think, again, going back to you being intentional about people calling you Chukwunonso, I think it's powerful because, again, it forces them to go out of their own comfort zones. It teaches them some level of someone else's culture. And also, like you said, it's a blessing over your own life. Like it's speaking something into your life. So, I mean, we don't have to talk about that too much, but I just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with addressing that really quick if you're okay with that. So it's it's definitely going to be a process. I think it's good to incentivize people. Like you said, it's cool now to be
right.
So, or you can find a comedian or something. So I think as long as someone finds someone they can connect with, then they might become more interested in learning how to pronounce their name properly. Because there's a lot of power in a name. The reason why I give names is because of the power in their meaning. It's almost like you were giving a divine assignment from God through your parents, right? And I give people these names to share my culture and inspire them. So it's like, this is your divine assignment. And it's like, if the people who I can give these names to, if they can think of themselves as almost kind of like a superhero in their own starring them. If you can think of some of these heroes, they're called to a purpose, right? And that purpose is challenging in the beginning, or they might even reject it in the beginning, and they want to have nothing to do with it. But as much as they run away, that purpose always follows them. So if you're struggling with something in your life, you want to accomplish a certain goal, and you ask me for an Igbo name, I'm going to try my best to give you a name that's going to speak some type of blessing into your situation. So it's like your divine assignment now. So no matter how far, if you have a setback in your life or anything like that, that thing will always follow you, just like that hero in a movie, and their purpose eventually wins them over. You know what I'm saying? Or they step into their purpose, and it leads them into greatness.
I love that.